Welcome to the Media Boat Podcast, where we talk all things content creation. So whether you're making from a cell phone or you're recording on a big budget cinema camera, we're here to provide you with practical knowledge to help you the next time you press record. Today on our episode, we've got someone very cool, a good friend of mine, my guy, Michael Snowden.
Hello.
What's up, man?
Man, nothing much. How are you?
Doing good. Today we're going to talk a little bit about producing and producing projects from an agency standpoint. Michael works with a company called GMR, a marketing agency, where he's producing a lot of different projects. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of dive into it. But how you been, man?
And I've been really good. Been busy with this marketing company. So I don't know. I'm going to let you start asking the questions and we'll go ahead.
Yeah, let's get it, man. Let's get it. So I wanted to start overall. How did you get into filmmaking, and like what inspired you to pick up a camera from the beginning and just get into this world?
Yeah. So we'll start from the beginning.
Yeah, let's take it back.
Let's take it back. So my real introduction to filmmaking was, I would say, was a happy accident. So I was at a point in my life where I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was running track in college and then got into a car accident and messed up my back and wasn't able to run anymore. So really trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I had saw this flyer for this project called the Millennial Trains Project. And basically what it was giving an opportunity for young entrepreneurs to travel across the world and work on their project. I didn't quite have a project yet, but I kind of knew I wanted to explore the world and just like learn things and talk to people. So I came up with the idea of a project around culture and social change and the way that art affects it. And my idea was I wanted to go to each of these stops and have somebody record these conversations and these interactions that I had. When I actually digged into it, I realized finding people to record me and not knowing my set schedule, it was impossible to do. People were asking for a lot of money that I didn't have. And then I just didn't know when I was going to be there. So it was hard to arrange that. So that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to pick up a camera and I'm going to try to record this myself. So I bought a camera. I went out and started practicing with it. I feel like one of the big things that I did to learn was I didn't say no. Like the first film gig that I got was actually working for a nonprofit. They had a poetry open mic night. And they was like, yeah, can you record this for me? I just found where the record button was on the camera. Like literally just that day. And I was like, you know what? I got it. I'm going to figure it out. And then from there, I feel like it was a step-by-step thing. I just kept learning new things, like digging through YouTube University grad.
Let's go.
Just digging through YouTube, finding new things and just keep growing. And it's like the more people that I was around, the more tools that I started to pick up. And I feel like, especially with the nonprofit I was working with, I ended up working the communications after that and really learning storytelling from a nonprofit aspect. And then also learning storytelling from poetry. And that kind of just like really blended my mind and mixing that with with like film and video. It's like, all right, how can I combine storytelling and all this other knowledge that I've learned? And from there, it just kind of kept growing. And I fell in love with the idea of storytelling and using a camera as a medium. Even now, it's like I'm kind of exploring outside of that and how to tell stories beyond the camera and through experiences, and also making what's on the camera an experience. Just really exploring what storytelling means and how to connect with people.
Yeah. When I moved here to Milwaukee, one of the first creatives I met was you. And whenever I see you, it takes me back to those days when like I remember not knowing what the heck I was doing, and we were just what they call running and gunning and trying to like come up with cool stuff. You know, we were shooting in alleyways and in parking decks and just all kinds of things. And that was like some of the basis to all of this that's happened for us and our company and just for me personally. And I always think I have fond memories of those times with you when I first started like shooting stuff. And yeah.
And I feel like that was the fun part where we were in that mode of just figuring it out. And I feel like the biggest thing is really just getting out there doing it. And that's what we were doing. Like you pushed me to pick up the camera even more and like try different things, try different angles, seeing the
snow
world.
angle.
Snow angle. Seeing things in a different way that, the normal person doesn't look at something.
Yeah.
So once again, we're finding new ways to tell stories and just doing it.
Yeah, and the snow angle is basically you shoot from the opposite where everyone else is shooting from. That's the snow angle, and yeah, we coined that way back in the day. Always came out with some fire. Well, so you work for a big marketing agency called GMR. Can you just talk a little bit about who they are and what you guys kind of do?
So GMR is an experiential marketing agency. So what we do is we kind of approach marketing as an experience, and like I said earlier, with storytelling, kind of fits right in my box. So oftentimes we'll build installations for clients, ways to bring in customers throughout the, not using the usual marketing tactics. So whether that's building a trailer where somebody can go in and experience something, or pop-ups somewhere, or decorating an entire stadium for a big event. We really try to create an experience around marketing rather than just telling people to go buy stuff. Right. And then within that, we have our content studio, is where I do the producing. And a lot of our experiences will have screens where it's an opportunity for customers to engage with an athlete, or they're able to watch a story, or just anything that's really content based.
Yeah. So now that you've been working at a large agency, how do you kind of blend the creative aspect with the producer aspect? And if people don't know, producers are a lot of times dealing with budgets and the paper side of it, and kind of, bringing in resources to get somewhere. Maybe a little bit less on, hands on the camera, that kind of thing. But how are you trying to kind of change that?
Yeah. So when first starting the job, I would say I was always a big creator, and always that's kind of been my frame of mind, like being a freelancer and kind of doing things on my own. Producing is one of those things that you do and you don't know you're doing. Like, you're finding locations, you're finding people to help you, you're figuring out how much stuff costs. Like, it's stuff you do in the background that you don't realize how important it is, but also how time consuming it is. So really balancing that with the creative had started off as a challenge, where it was like, all right, I've got these creative ideas, but it's like, wait, you have to figure out the budget, and you're working off of somebody else's creative. Like, that's not your lane right now. So I've really started to grow, where it's like finding ways to, help the creative through producing, whether that's, we need to figure out how to do this, but we only have this amount of budget. So it's like, what are some creative ways we can still accomplish our goal and reach our target audience, but do it within this budget? It's like, is it maybe using a different camera? Is it maybe shooting it a different way? Is it maybe downscaling our crew so we don't have a bunch of audio people, then we have a gaffer, a grip? Like, how can we pare this down? So it's really just looking at creativity in a different way. But I've also had an opportunity to start jumping in more into like the storytelling of the creative, and like finding ways we can make it cost effective through that side as well. So it's really looking at the numbers and the business side of it behind filmmaking, rather than the actual what's going on the screens.
Yeah, I feel like most producers don't start as creatives. So they're good at numbers, they're good at business. Maybe they've been doing that and kind of got into, what they're doing as a producer for a film. But you're kind of the opposite. So you have insight that I think is super important. You've directed and done a lot of different things as well. So how does that how does your directing mind take over sometime, or assist you with your decision making?
Yeah. And I feel like with this last project I was just on, and I feel like I actually had a chance to direct. Oftentimes, as the producer, we ended up being the director as well. Just because we're controlling the day, we're rolling with the day on set. But one of the biggest things with being a director is just knowing what you want, and knowing and making decisions, making those hard decisions. And I feel like it's the same thing in producing, being able to make those hard decisions and knowing exactly what you want. Being able to tell the creatives, no, we can't do that because we don't have the budget, or here's another way we can do it. This is just really being very decisive in your decisions and making sure everything continues to move forward. I know a lot of times with creatives, we'll come up with this idea, it'll be amazing, we love it, but it becomes bigger than us, and we forget to push it forward, or we lose motivation to move it forward. And that's really the role of the producer, really helping it push forward. And I feel like with the directing background and understanding that side, as well as the producing side has really helped me continue to push things forward and finding the right support and who I need and things like that.
Yeah. So how do you balance that aspect of telling the story you want to tell, but also making it be, making your money work, making the budget be there? Is there any like ways that you go about that, or like scenarios you found a different way to approach something to help out specifically?
So this one in particular, it was a smaller project, but we needed a drone shot. And to do drones the right way, it becomes very expensive. You need insurance, especially with a large agency where we need a lot of insurance. We have to have a lot of clearance. We have to check with all of our higher ups. It becomes expensive and it becomes a tedious and long process. In filmmaking world and agency work, we don't have that time. We've got like a couple weeks at best to plan the shoot it. So I was like, all right, what's a great way we can get a high quality, higher angle? So we got a bunch of sticks and a GoPro. We've got a monopod, put it up. We got the shot that we needed. It was a quick transition cut of a truck driving by, and it worked. Obviously, it's not the most ideal shot. Like if I had the money, I wouldn't have done it. But there's always ways to figure things out. So you just kind of got to be flexible.
Yeah.
And that's where the creative comes in as well. Where it's like, we can't get a drone, but we can get a GoPro, some monopods, and put it on a high angle.
Yeah.
And get the same shot.
That's dope. So when you're actually looking, because I know you guys outsource a lot of projects to different production companies, or if you're traveling across the country and you need a group of people, a crew in another city, you're doing that. So what do you kind of look for in production companies when you're, looking to, basically bring someone onto a project?
Yeah. So when we're looking for production companies, I feel like one of the biggest things, well, I'll start from the beginning. The first thing that I'll look at is your website. If I can find your website captivating, you have some interesting projects, you have a lot of examples, you have range, and the quality's there, then it's like you've already got 1 point in my book. The website is like first impressions. So anybody out there starting a production company, or you have a production company, focus on that website. Make sure it's up to par and updated. After that, it's really just the conversation. In this business, I feel like a lot of it is relationships, and being able to build a relationship with a production company. Like they may be able to do the work, but if like you can't get along with them, or they're not like likable, you got to spend a whole week with them on set. It's like that's not the first person you're gonna go hire. Mm-hmm. It's really all about building that relationship, building the rapport, and then being reliable as well. I feel like that's another thing. It's like oftentimes when we'll have a project, there's so many other things going on, where it's like, if we're hiring a production company, we want you to think about some of these things. We want you to be like, okay, well, we recommend this camera, this angle, because this. Mm-hmm. Like we have the capacity to do it in-house, but it's like, if we're hiring somebody to be a professional, we want them to be the professional. We want them to, have input. We're just not hiring an extra hand, because we could do that anywhere. So hiring a production company with expertise and with knowledge is definitely another plus as well.
Yeah, and then what are you looking for from those production companies when it comes to the bidding process? Because a lot of times you have to get multiple bids before you can select somebody. What's that process kind of look like?
Yeah, so the bids are usually definitely driven by the client and how much they're willing to spend. Mm-hmm. It really depends. We can get into the whole conversation of talking about union jobs and non-union jobs and pricing and all the rules with that. But that's also another thing we look at in bids. If it is a union job, making sure you're following those rules. But I guess another thing is we'll always send out bidding specs before we request bids. So making sure people have paid attention to those and what we wrote in there. Like if you put in like, oh, we are bringing catering, hair and makeup, but we didn't ask for that. And like we specifically didn't ask for that. And it's like, all right, you guys didn't really pay attention to this. So it's like, how are you going to pay attention on set?
Right.
So I guess understanding what is being asked for, and then also asking questions. I feel like that's a big thing as well. it's okay if you don't necessarily understand what we need. Because sometimes we're getting stuff straight down from our creative, and it's like maybe it's time for us to talk it out, and you have better solutions than what we need. Like, say we're shooting something and we're recommending it shot in 4K, but if you believe it'd be better if it was shot in 6K because of this, and that, like that's a recommendation we want to hear. So, I guess really paying attention to those bidding specs and what's needed, and having input and knowledge about that as well.
Right. And GMR is a internationally known. Like, you guys do a lot of different work all over. There are a lot of times when you have to like outsource creatives in different markets or places you haven't been necessarily until production. Is that process a little different, or is it just a lot more Zoom calls? Like, how does that work separately from when you know a crew or a team in your local area?
Yeah. So just to be clear, when most things we outsource is like the production company. So all of our creatives would be in house, but most of it would be the production company. Sometimes we'll hire like positions individually, like we'll just hire a DP or an audio person. But the process of that is, once again, we'll just do a search. Oftentimes I'll start on LinkedIn and just look up a certain area, see if people have it in their bio. After that, it's like I'll look at people's websites. I'm big on Production Hub. So if people have websites there, and it's like I'll find a name, I'll start Googling them, seeing what they've done. And then another thing is I use is Instagram. Like if I see somebody with a dope Instagram, it's like I'll bookmark them. It's like, all right, if I'm ever in this area, I got to reach out to this
So
guy.
you're doing your research always.
Oh, yeah. Always doing my research, always looking for, the next person I could probably work with and more resources. Like I said, it's a relationship thing too. So not only for the production companies, but for me, it's an opportunity for me to kind of reach out and see who's out there, and build that relationship and build this network of like, if I need somebody, I know I got somebody in Arizona, I got somebody in Texas. It's like just knowing I have people there. So really just relationship building in general.
Yeah. So our podcast, obviously, we're here in Milwaukee. It's a lot of local cats here. But you've been able to see the scene in other places. What kind of things have you seen, like whether you're working in like LA or you're working in Atlanta or something like that they're doing that maybe you don't see as much here, or that you would recommend, like, if you want to get to that level and level up, this is some stuff you should do when it comes to production?
Yeah. One thing I would say is with some of the production companies that like we've really liked or have worked out really well is they have those networks. They're willing to work with people in their city that are specialized in it. I feel like a lot of times as filmmakers, we come up as, the one person doing it all, but we can't necessarily do that anymore, especially on bigger projects. You can't do that. You can't be running the camera, audio, lights. So being able to have that reliable team and like building your network, realizing you can't do it all. You can't play director, producer. Sometimes it's okay to outsource that job. And I know oftentimes people think about the money aspect of it. It's like, well, I'm splitting my paycheck. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, you're not burning yourself out. You have extra hands, and now you have room to do even more work. That's kind of one of the biggest things that I've talked about. And I know even some of the production companies that I've just talked to and kind of learned about how they structured their business. Like that's the first thing they did is they set up the structure of their production company and they look for help. They didn't try to do everything by themselves. They look for help. I guess another thing that I would mention too is, and it goes back to your other question about what I look for in production companies. I know a lot of them that I've seen that like really interest me. They have a lot of work that they do for themselves, not just client work, but like passion projects where they're able to like flex their muscle on what they're actually capable of. Whether that's the storytelling, camera angles, the way they color their footage, like it's driven by them and it's really their voice and not strictly just client voice. Because I mean, I feel like it's easy to copy and paste somebody else's style, but somebody who has their own specific style, I feel like that's a unicorn.
Yeah.
Finding that somebody who has their own touch to it, it always adds an extra oomph.
Especially nowadays, there's like so many copycats out there.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is so many people have learned from YouTube and from watching creators. So they're just emulating as you're learning. And it takes a while to find your voice, right? And it's I think seeing someone with their own voice like that really lets you know that they're really experienced too, because they've been through all that part of it where I'm just trying things to be like other folks.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't bash that part at all. I feel like that's definitely a necessary part of, the YouTube University, finding a bunch of people, kind of emulating them, seeing how they do stuff.
Part of growth in a way.
But and I feel like the next step to that is breaking it down and really understanding how they did it and why they did it, and taking pieces from all different artists and creating your own thing. I feel like that's where, and then this is me as a creative talking, where you're bringing in all this influence and then you're allowing this influence to create something that's new. Like you can take pieces from each pie. If you put the pie together, it's a brand new pie. So
that's a clippable moment right there. That's dope. What sense of responsibility do you feel at being the producer? It's, they talk about top of the line roles, director, producer versus like, some of the lower roles that are below the line. You have a different pressure on a project. Can you talk about kind of like how, seeing something from start to finish, what that feels like?
Yeah. So I feel like anybody that's been on a project through all of the phases understands how stressful it can be. The pre-production, the production, and post-production, it can be stressful. And from a producer standpoint, like it's really your role to make sure, one, you're hitting your deadlines, everything's staying on track, everybody's being held accountable for each piece, and then making sure we get it finished. So it is a different type of pressure. But, and I remember seeing you guys saying this in another video about the pre-production process. Honestly, it's one of my least favorites, but it is the most important. In that producer role, it's like, I know one of the things is just making sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted in pre-production. As if you can do that, everything else will go smoothly. There's no figuring things out on set. There's no missing anything in post. Like, exactly what you're doing, and it makes the entire timeline kind of just smooth. So that pre-production is gonna be messy. And it's supposed to be messy because that's when you're figuring things out and you're putting it together. So don't be afraid of the mess in pre-production. Don't. And as a producer, that's probably the most stressful part, because it's like you want to get these budgets and you want to figure out how much stuff costs, but the ideas aren't completely fleshed out yet. So you've got a bunch of different numbers everywhere, and you got to figure out which one you're going to go with. I think that's the biggest in the process. That's the biggest part. And then on set during actual production, it's really just making sure the day goes smoothly. And then my role is a little bit different because I do have that creative background. Like oftentimes I will hop in at the director, or I'll peek behind camera and do some stuff. But
touch and feel a little bit every once in a while.
Just a little bit. Making sure the camera still works,
That's the one we rented, right?
Just making sure. And
what would you tell someone that is interested in being a producer? Obviously, like at a lower level, at an indie level, if you're just getting started, most projects don't really have a producer. A lot of, as you start to grow and there's bigger budgets and more involved, then a producer becomes way more necessary. So it's maybe something you kind of go into later on. But if you are looking to do that, what are some ways that you can maybe get involved with some projects?
Yeah. And I feel like no matter what size the project, I feel like a producer is necessary and helpful. So any DP or production company out there, anybody that's doing anything creative, and you're getting paid for it, I would say look for somebody to help you organize. Knowing creatives, we are not the most organized people because our thoughts and brains are everywhere. We need that person to help us balance. And that is the producer's role, is to really help you balance, and basically project management. Like that's the biggest part, is they're managing the project for you so you can focus on the creative part of it. And you can just create freely. So for anybody that wants to get in the producer role, I would say just hit up your favorite DP, hit up your favorite production company, and just ask them if you can help them organize stuff. And for yourself, I would just practice organization as well.
Absolutely.
Making sure you can set up file structures. You have a process in place. You can help organize ideas, help build decks, things like that. It doesn't only help with the producer role, but it just helps with the project in general.
Mm-hmm. What are a couple tips or things that you use to help yourself stay organized? Because you got to take your thoughts, your budgets, and then take it to the creative after to get it done. What are there some apps you use or different things that you use to kind of get things online?
Yes. So right now, like internally for my work stuff, we use like more Microsoft Teams and then a lot of Excel sheets. We have like customized Excel sheets with all the formulas and everything to make sure everything is same from project to project. So like if we're bidding one thing, we're using the exact same rates, exact same everything for each project. For my personal stuff, I've started using Notion. Yes.
This is going to be the third mention of Notion on our podcast, on our young podcast already.
Well, listen, I think y'all need to talk to Notion.
Yeah.
So,
Notion's
but yeah,
awesome.
I've started using Notion. It's really helped me like stay more organized. Like before, I was just using like my notes in my phone or notes on my computer, and then writing things down. Honestly, that's one of the biggest things as well, is being able to write things down on paper. I feel like that's kind of helped me cement it in my brain and make it real versus just typing things.
Yeah.
Because it kind of gets lost in the computer.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then also playing with file structures and understanding like where things go. Coming from the creative world, you don't know how many times I've labeled a file draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, draft 3AB, draft. It becomes a pile up. So like learning like naming conventions and ways to organize what you're doing and not just, exporting stuff out or saving stuff out just randomly, but actually having a process to it.
Yeah. What are some things that you're looking forward to doing in the future with your talents that you have?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things once I started producing. So one of the biggest things that I wanted to do once I started producing was really understanding the business side of being creative. Like I loved creating things, I love making things, but like really understanding the business behind it and how the numbers move. Because I went to school, my degree is in business management and communications. So like that's what I learned in college. The creative thing was just one of those things that was always in my heart. But really understanding how things flow and like how you work with clients and ways to bring clients in, or like how the numbers move. Like I said, I just wanted to keep growing in that aspect and being more of a creative, and also expanding my talents beyond just behind the film, and maybe even doing more installations or creating more experiences and really exploring what storytelling is beyond the camera and beyond just content creation.
Nice. Well, where can our listeners or viewers find you and get to continue to follow your story, man?
Most definitely. So on IG, it's Snow the Man, Snow_the_man. And then currently updating my portfolio now. So you can check out my website, creativewesley.com, and just take a look at some of the work and let me know what you think.
Nice. Thank you so much for being on this podcast with us today, man. We appreciate you coming out, man.
I appreciate you guys for having me. I always love working with Media Boat, man.
Yes, sir. So no matter where you're listening or watching this, please do us a favor and like, comment, subscribe, share, get the word out there. We just thank you so much for tuning in today. Hopefully you got some nuggets out of this, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.